Dialed In Angling Podcast presented by Strike Master Augers, Onyx Fish, and Arneson's Resort. This week, I'm sitting at the dealership of Rapid Marine. We're actually at the Sauk Rapids location. I'm sitting down with Brian, the service manager, and Andrew, the parts manager. These guys are experts when it comes to boats, everything boats, and now it's spring. You guys are knee deep in rigging season and getting boats out there. You know, first of all, I want to say welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Secondly, I wanted to do this podcast because, like a lot of other anglers, you know, I don't really start thinking about spring projects until spring actually hits, right? It's like right now, if you came to my house, my pole barn, my shop still has ice fishing stuff laying around. It's got some open water rods, but it's sort of a hodgepodge. I think a lot of anglers out there are kind of like that with their boats where, you know, they don't really start thinking spring until it warms up a little bit. The ice starts coming off the lake. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're like, oh man, we got this boat rigged. It's opener, you know, and it's varying degrees. I understand some of the hardcore anglers, they want to get their boat out right away. They want to do some spring crappie fishing. They want to run up to the Rainy River or go down to the Red Wing or whatever. Others wait till Memorial Day is kind of the kickoff. So I wanted to sit down with you guys and chat a little bit about, you know, we've had sort of a cold spring and, I think what's going to happen here as things start to warm up, you know, we're starting to get into more spring-like weather now. You're going to get a big rush of people that are like, oh my gosh, I need my boat now. You know, what are some things that anglers can do or boat owners can do to get their boats ready, even if they're not quite ready to launch it yet, because say there's ice on the lake at their cabin or whatever?
Yeah, getting your boat out of storage early is a key, especially for dealerships. We get really, really busy in the springtime here. And if you need service on your boat, get it out of storage as quickly as possible. Get your batteries charged up. Get on that game ahead of time before you even bring it to us. It just helps speed up that process at the dealership. That's one thing you can start with.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are swapping out electronics. You know, that's big now. Or they're adding, let's say, forward-facing sonar. I just know from my experience as far as getting the boats rigged properly. You guys do that all the time, making sure you have adequate power. You know, I know that's a big thing with forward-facing. You know, one of the first boats that I had with forward-facing sonar, you know, I just didn't have adequate enough power. And it makes a huge difference when you're looking for fish, when you're utilizing that technology, having the right battery power. What are you seeing as far as, you know, people retrofitting their boats or if they're buying new boats? You know, a lot of people, are they putting it on poles? Are they putting it on the trolling motors? What are they running for batteries? That sort of thing.
So with forward-facing sonar, clean power is a key. Adding a lot of graphs and black boxes, you know, for say that you need for these forward-facing sonars. A lot of guys are adding a house battery, we call it, and having that clean power from that house battery is important. And then as far as rigging your poles, bass guys with the, you know, scissor lift trolling motors are mounting it directly to the trolling motor. And a lot of people are using like a Bruce City mount. We use that here a lot. It works well with the boats that we sell, and it's a very solid pole. Durability is key for sure.
Yeah, what I've noticed too is a lot of people get poles that move around a lot. And, you know, it screws you up when you're fishing. If that pole's moving, matter of fact, I was just out in Green Bay with my buddy, and he had his kind of rigged up to a rail mount on his Lund glass boat, but it was on a ram mount. And so as we went forward, that pole would lean down, and then I'd constantly be pulling that pole up. The other thing is his pole itself was sort of this fiberglass kind of extension pole that you'd use for ice fishing, right? And he kind of cobbled it together to put it on the front of his boat. First thing I told him, I was like, dude, you spent all this money on these electronics. You need to get a different pole system. You need to get something that's a little more rigid where that pole's not moving up and down. You know, for me, I like to run one on a pole, one on my trolling motor. That way, if I'm hunting down fish, I've got one in the back, one that doesn't flex, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so I can run down fish at 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. It also gives me the ability to spot lock once I find the fish. But I also like having that one on my trolling motor. I always tell people, like, if you're only going to do one, especially if you're walleye and angler, I always say put it on a pole.
For sure. Yeah, pole is going to be your most versatile option for live.
Yeah, it just you can spot lock, you can do a lot of things if you have people in the boat. Especially it helped me to have my first forward-facing sonar on a pole, because I could also cast and get comfortable with distances and seeing fish and what I'm seeing. It's a much more stable environment. Whereas when it's on your trolling motor, you're going back and forth, and I love it on the trolling motor. Now, I use that a lot, especially if I'm not guiding. If I'm just fishing by myself, I'm almost always up front on the trolling motor, sort of, running down fish. But I still use it on the pole a lot. Because I spend so much time guiding, I use it on the pole probably more than my trolling motor, if that makes sense,
Yeah. Do you see you use it on the trolling motor more for specific species of fish, or do you use it for all on the trolling motor?
Kind of all. There's certain times, like when it's dead flat calm and I'm chasing down like packs of walleyes or something. I use it on my trolling motor, but also, like, I could think of examples where I was bass fishing and I was picking pockets of like holes in the milfoil or in the cabbage, where I was like throwing on those fish, and trying to get a reaction strike out of those fish, or trying to draw them up out of the weeds. I also use it for like crappie fishing in the spring. Like, oh man, there they are. But then I'll spot lock and then go back to my pole.
Right.
And
yeah,
use
just
it.
Having that other option is key. Yeah.
One thing that is intriguing to me, as this technology gets better and better, I see a lot of people now where they've got, like 2 forward-facing sonar units up front, right? And then another graph for their map and 2D or side imaging. But I saw a lot of people in Green Bay in particular, where it was really shallow, and they ran one on like scout mode or perspective mode, depending on the unit they had. And then they had one on forward-facing sonar, because in that shallow water, they could see them on scout or perspective mode, and then boom, they would shoot over and then throw their rip and wrap or hair jig or whatever it was, right, to get on those fish quickly, because you're mainly fishing in under 10 feet of water. So I always tell people, like, my ideal setup would be have like 3 units up front,
right, 16-inch
yeah,
crabs,
3 in the back, and then like even I was just up on the Rainy River, and Marcus Quam, who is a contributor to Dialed In Angling, does a ton of fishing, open water and on ice. He actually has these mounts where he's got his ice bundles that he puts up on his rails, and they lock in. It's almost like the link system for Skidoo. Like, they lock into place. And then, so he'd have 2 ice bundles in the back, 3 screens on his dash, 3 screens up front. I was like so jealous. I was like technology jealous of him.
Yeah, with my lives, I set mine on the back of the seat so I can move it anywhere I want in the boat along the rail system. It's nice just to have it mobile. You don't always have to have that black box and everything mounted into the boat either. If you're using it for multiple seasons, a good way is just keep it in the ice pack and just use that battery to power that unit. Then you're not also pulling that power off your boat as well.
Yeah, ice bundles are great. That's what I love about my Lund Sport Track is I can add I do it all the time. I take one of my ice bundles and I throw it in the boat just for customers, or, I don't fish a ton of tournaments, but if I'm pre-fishing for a tournament or something and I've got a partner that, wants to search while I'm searching, it's kind of helpful.
Gotta slap it on.
Yeah, slap it on there.
Yeah, if your buddy has a unit, just, if you have a Lund, you can use a Sport Track and just have a mount. Just mount his pole right to the boat, and he can bring his unit too.
Is there any like new products that have come out, for forward facing or deucer mounts or anything that you guys are seeing where, people are starting to gravitate towards, or a product that they may not know about that you think, man, we should really get, we should rig this on their boat?
Dual stack in the front of the boat is becoming more and more popular, especially, you have your regular unit used for mapping and sonar, and then you add this live unit to the bow. Having a dual stack and then also having it come vertically higher towards you gives you the benefit to see that live image better. It's just closer. You're not bent over. It's more comfortable for you to see. So having new products come out, Beatdown is one that we've seen now. They have extendable poles to bring that unit closer to you and still fit your cover on the boat.
Yeah. I'm always torn because I fish so much rough water. Like, where do I put my graphs? I want them up high, but I'm also beating across Mille Lacs Lake or
Don't want 'em
Leech.
sagging.
Yeah, I don't want them sagging. And so I struggle with that. I also struggle with, if I do have, let's say my forward facing on a pole that I move up front, it's not so, it's not so uncomfortable in the back because it seems like the gunnels are a little bit higher and stuff. But up front, when I'm running my trolling motor, when I did have a pole up front, or if I moved an ice bundle up front, it was like I was always just kind of contorted getting that, that forward facing sonar to work with my trolling motor. And that's why I like having it on the trolling motor, because then I can just go around and scan all the time. And I'm not kind of contorted pulling that pole and trying to cast. And it becomes really cumbersome.
Right.
Yeah. What's also cool, in addition to forward-facing sonar, though, is just how good the technology has become. Like I run the Rances in the summer, but I also have Garmin units that I use in the winter and the summer. Live units. I was just up at Rainy with a buddy. He had side imaging, and we were shooting fish once we saw him on side imaging. I just think how far the technology has come, even in the last 5 years. Not just forward-facing sonar, but just how I remember doing seminars and talking about side imaging and showing people like, okay, these are fish, these are rocks. Now you can see it, man. It's crystal clear. And
when I started rigging here at Rapid, putting a 7-inch screen at the console, that was a big screen, and you had a 5-inch up front, and that's what you rigged. You never had those bigger screens, and now everybody, you're putting a 9 or a 10 on all the time, up to 16s. So
if I'm a person, let's say I'm buying a boat right now, right? And, we're looking at all these beautiful boats here at the dealership. I always tell people when they ask me, like, hey, I'm buying a Lund from Rapid, what should I rig up on my boat? And I always say, hey, get what you want, right? Get your forward-facing sonar unit, rig it up so you've got 2 screens at the helm. You got at least 2 screens up front. Try to isolate those screens for your forward-facing sonar unit. Get you what you want and get it rigged the way you want it before it goes out the door. Because nothing worse than having it all set up and you got this great new boat you want to try and it's not rigged up the way you want. You've got small graphs on there. You don't have a forward-facing sonar. You're sort of cobbling things together. You're trying to do it yourself.
Yeah,
I know I've done that and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, putting your electronics on to its maximum capacity of what you can afford is definitely important right away. You're going to save money in the long run, switching out units or trying to resell them. You don't have to worry about that. Like they always say, spend the money, get what you want, and be happy with it. Enjoy the time on the water.
Yeah, that window is so short. It seems like, oh yeah, we got all summer, but it always seems like, once October hits, it's like, man, where did that time go? And, looking now, it's mid-April. We're finally starting to see warmer weather. We still have ice on the lakes up north. You got, it's a short window. And so getting it rigged the way you want is always key. And, obviously I'm an extreme example because I spend so much time on the water, but I have learned, like, with forward-facing sonar, you need a unit strictly dedicated for that. You can't be splitting the screen. It's too hard.
Correct. Yep.
It just is too hard. You can't see. You don't get enough information. And if you're new to the technology, it's so much nicer to have that big screen because you can throw a bait out there and be like, oh, there's my jig. Oh, there's a fish. That thought process in getting that down is so much quicker when you have that screen. I know that first year I had forward-facing sonar, I had split the screen and it was like a 10-inch screen and had it all, or about a 9-inch Lowrance or something, and it was all broke down. And I was like, I can't see anything. Yeah. I remember it was like the bottom part of the screen was the forward-facing sonar. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking at here.
Even with side imaging, I find myself putting that on a full screen when I'm actually searching with side imaging. So having that larger screen size, if you're going to split, you're taking half of it away for another item that you're trying to see.
Yeah, it seems like the sky's the limit as far as what you can spend, and I know how expensive it is. So, like if we were just talking, like if my ideal setup would be like, having a screen up front that just has forward facing sonar, but then also having one in perspective mode, so if you're fishing shallow water, you can find those fish quicker, but then go to forward facing sonar. And I mean, I see these boats, like up at Rainy River when we were dumping in the water, how many people have 3-4 graphs up front and 3-4 graphs in the back. Right. And I fish every day and I don't even have those. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And it's not just one or two people. It's like, I saw a guy dumping in, an older Lund that he kind of retrofitted. It was like an old Mr. Walleye edition. And the amount of electronics this dude had on there was just mind blowing.
Yeah, we see that a lot. Guys that are upgrading just electronics. They got, 10, 15, 20-year-old boat and the boat is still good shape. Motor's good. And we just retrofit all new graphs, strip it down, start over. It's a good idea.
It works. It definitely works. Whatever's in your budget, for me personally, I would have a hard time putting that much technology into an older boat. Right. Or you see somebody, they love, and I get it. Some people just love their boat, right? Yep. I have customers that are like, man, I've got a Lund from, early 2000, whatever it is. And they're like, I love my boat. I don't want to sell it. I want to, upgrade the motor and upgrade the electronics. And that's great, but I always think, man, I would really look at some of these new boats, these new hull designs. If you get into a new boat,
new feature, ride, yeah.
If you don't have Sport Track, get Sport Track.
Yeah, Sport Track's huge for your not only your electronics but everything else that goes on there. I'm a huge Sport Track fan. I'm biased because I grew up. I always tell people I was like literally bottle fed in a Lund boat, but. When I'm in my boat and then I get into somebody else's boat, for example, that's one of the first things I notice is like, the Sport Track. Like I was in my buddy's boat and I won't name the brand, but his, when he's driving, he's got a forward facing sonar and a pole, but it's so far back that when he's driving, he's like this, he's got his arm extended back towards the motor. And I'm like, man, if you had a Lund Sport Track, you could just put it up right by your console and you could move that thing around, so I was kind of teasing him. But it is true. It's so nice to have that system in the boat. Let's shelf the forward-facing sonar talk for a second. It seems like every podcast we start getting down that rabbit hole. And
deeper and deeper.
Deeper and deeper. And it's the topic of conversation. But let's shelf that for a bit. I want to pick you guys' brains a little bit. Like if I'm pulling my boat out of storage today, okay, it's still a little early enough where I want to get some things done on my boat. I want to check some things. What are the things to look for? I know for me, like batteries always creep up on people. You see people at that landing that, need batteries. I'm personally not really well versed in like lithium battery technology, for example. I run AGMs in my boat, but lithium technology is sort of new. It's intriguing to me, but like, what are you seeing as far as battery power? What are some things people can do right out of the gates? They grab their boat, between battery power, fuel issues, just the boat sitting over the winter. I mean, what are some things people can do to troubleshoot, to get their boat ready to hit the water without being that guy at the landing where you turn the key and nothing happens, right? And you're blocking the whole ramp.
Battery charge, what we talked about earlier, when you get it out of storage, if you have an onboard charger, get it plugged in. Been a good idea to keep it plugged in all winter if you had that opportunity. But one thing we're seeing is people adding that charger bank to your start battery. So you keep things charged up throughout the year as well. So it's one plug, yep. And everything is charged. As far as the lithium going forward here, we're seeing a lot more of it with trolling motors, different options as far as 12-volt power, 24-volt batteries, 36-volt batteries, running them in parallel for larger trolling motors. With the brush motors, trolling motors, you really got to watch how fast you're running your trolling motor. It can cause some damage with lithium at high speeds, constantly high speeds. So be careful with that if you do switch to lithium and you have a brushed motor.
If you got brushless, they'll definitely go lithium.
Okay. With the Quest trolling motors, go lithium. Any of the Lowrance goes.
Recon coming out and stuff like that, yeah.
What about when it's cold. So like, I was just, Brian, when you were just up at Rainy River, I was up there too. A friend of mine, just got a new boat, and he was like, yeah, I got lithium batteries. Super excited. I was like, that's great. How do they operate in the cold? Because the first day when we got up there, it was like 20 degrees.
Correct.
I know some of them have heaters in there. There's different models.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to get a lithium battery, find one that's got a heating element in it. When you plug it in with your charger, and you have to make sure your charger is compatible with lithium as well if you're redoing batteries in your boat. But having a heated battery is going to allow you to charge that battery at colder temperatures, because there are shutoffs and temp sensors in there that will not allow it to charge. And every battery company is different of what temperature that cutoff is at. So make sure you do your research on that for sure.
That you just brought up a good point too about changing your battery chargers. Someone that just does a DIY, hey, I'm going to go out and buy a bunch of lithiums and throw them on my boat. Make sure that battery charger is swapped out.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at options like that, that's why it's good to bring it into a dealership like you guys, people that are experts, that you're not just rigging up your boat yourself and cobbling things together, because that's when you run into trouble.
Really got to do your research with all this new stuff coming out.
The other thing that you brought up, Ryan, was putting that charger in the back on your cranking batteries, on your house batteries. I know for me in the past, I've run into issues where I was so used to just charging my front battery, and in the past I didn't use that much power in the back, like in my cranking and house battery, that it seemed like my motor was able to kind of keep up with that back battery. But once I started adding bigger graphs, once I started using forward-facing sonar, I have to charge those back batteries every single day. Otherwise, I'm going to run into issues.
Yeah, every day you have a constant negative draw anytime you turn something on the boat, whether it's a pump, navigation lights, your sonars. And when you add, forward-facing sonar, you're also adding that black box. That's like adding another locator to the boat. Just figure that in too. So you have so much draw that there's only so much power in that little box in the back of the boat that's charged. So you need to make sure you're charging every night when you're done, that you're ready to go the next day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. As far as fuel and fuel additives, that sort of thing, if somebody just put their boat away, what are some things people can do on the fuel end of things?
I mean, there's a bunch of different brands. We carry the Mercury brand here for stabilization. They got a 3-step process. So over the winter, they have one that's called Quick Store, I think it's called. But just making sure it's stabilized. And kind of the biggest thing, if you, like these guys on Rainy and going out for opener, get your boat on the water before those trips. Just test everything on, whether it's just leaving it on the trailer at the landing, just popping it off quick, making sure that feels good. The batteries are charged, your electronics turn on, stuff like that. So
yeah, get a set of muffs and run it at home on the garden hose before you make that trip. Even if it's July 4th and it's your first time out, run it at home before you go.
Don't have the wife yelling at you on the family trip. So
coming back from Rainy the other day, I had so many boats heading north, and it was like some of them, they didn't look seaworthy to begin with, and I know a lot of people run like a Rainy Lake boat, air quotes, Rainy Lake, or Rainy River boat, where it doesn't have
slide
to
it over the ice shelf.
They can slide it over the ice. They can pull it up on the ice. It's sort of a rugged boat. But I always wonder, like, how many of these people actually tested their batteries before they headed up there? And it's cold, right? I mean, most of the time in the mornings you get up and it's, below freezing. And I just because of my job, I spend so much time at the landings, and it always seems from now until opener, or even maybe now until Memorial Day, you inevitably get to the landing and see someone turning over their motor, and trying to crank things over. A buddy of mine called me the other day. He's like, hey, trying to get his boat ready. He's like, nothing works. None of the lights come on. Nothing is working. And I just put new batteries in. Could you come over and take a look? And I'm no mechanic by any stretch of the means, but I've been around boats. I said, yeah, I'll come over. So I started driving to his house, and then he called me. He's like, hey, figured it out. And I was like, what? What? And he's like, oh, the the main power switch, they had shut it off at the dealership because he
Sure.
had some work done,
Yep.
and he had no idea that he even had a main power switch in the back. And
Yeah, we train our techs that when they're done working on things, that all the master powers shut off, all the breakers are tripped, just so there's no draw on your boat. Because when it sits and it switches on, you can have a slight little trickle draw, and if you're not charging that battery up when it's sitting, you'll go out to the water and have a dead battery.
I even try to shut my main power off when I'm not using my boat for a few days.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I've noticed
Yep.
that, not just even talking over the winter, but like, I remember last year just going on vacation in August, and I would just shut it off
Yep.
because I'm so used to using my boat every single day. Can't believe if you don't do that, how much draw
Yep.
is actually
Make a habit at the access. You're done for the day, turn it off,
Is there anything else that you guys could give advice to listeners as far as, things that they can do? I know right now, like being proactive and getting your boat in now,
Yeah.
because, dealers like Rapid get so busy as far as service, and you've got people coming in to get new boats. You got, people getting things serviced. I know it's key to just get on the books. Like if you have a trip planned, get your boat in and
Right.
get
At least
things
a
taken.
couple weeks ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants that rush, and they're like, "Hey, I need that. We're going on a trip this weekend. Can you? It's
Yeah.
Thursday.
Thursday
Can you,
before opener.
Yeah.
Can you take a look at my boat?"
That doesn't always work. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Plan ahead.
When you're pulling your boat out, make sure your tire pressure is good at home. You can always jack it up, check your wheel bearings, just spin them. Are they growly, or just visual inspection for that grease? Because you never want to be stuck on the side of the road headed to the lake with a blown out bearing.
I have a great story about that. I had a brand new Lund, but it was in the fall, and I was heading down to Arkansas. It was like a writers convention in November. I was actually pretty excited because it extended my fishing season, but it was this big writers event down there, and I get to fish, Bull Shoals and all these cool, walleye destinations that I had read about in Fisherman as a kid, and so my dad's like, "Hey, we should just come over and check your bearings quick." And I'm like, "Dad, it's a brand new boat. I mean, it's fall, right? I just got in the boat this spring." He's like, "You got a long trip, I said, "It's a brand new boat. I'll check the air pressure in the tires, and I got to leave at, dark 30 to get down to Arkansas." I take off Sunday morning. I hit the Iowa border. I actually got off on the on-ramp to get gas, and I pull into the gas station, and whoop, it sounded like a gunshot had went off. It was a bearing. And I thought, you know what? My dad, I should have listened to him.
I told you so. It's coming.
And it's actually a cool story because I was sitting there. I'm thinking, what am I'm in Iowa. It's a Sunday morning. It's like 8 a.m. on a Sunday. I'm sitting there. I'm like, what am I going to do? This guy literally pulls in. He's like, "Hey, looks like you got an issue." And it was, I had a tandem axle trailer, but it was the back wheel. He's like, "There's a Walmart right there. You might be able to pull it in there." So it was like right over the on-ramp, or over the bridge.
Yep.
It was a Walmart. I pull it in the parking lot, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't work on trailers." I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to be stuck in Iowa for a few days. This guy pulls in the parking lot. He's like, "Hey, you got some issues with your trailer?" I said, "Yeah, man, I just blew a bearing." He's like, "I own the auto parts store in town.
Oh man,
I know exactly what parts you need." He's like, "I'll just run in and grab them, and then I'll help you in the parking lot here." So he opens up his auto parts store, comes back, comes out, sands the spindle, does everything. We're putting it together in a Walmart parking lot, put it back together. And I'm like, I'm just blown away how nice this guy is to me.
yeah.
And he's like, "Things happen." I said, "Okay, well, what do I owe you?" He's like, $72 for parts. I'm like, "Here's $300. Here's my card. I will take you fishing." And so anytime I do big trips like that or getting out in the spring, I'm always conscious of bearings, tire pressure, all the things, checking even your tires for radials, wear worn, anything on the trailer that can happen. I'm always looking, bolts loose, anything like that.
Yeah, we just got to help each other out too. If we, as fishermen, if we see that happen along the road and you have the ability to help somebody, just help them. It'll make their day, and it'll make your day even, better as well. So
there's two things I always do in the winter because I spend so much time on the ice. If someone's stuck, I always have a giant strap in my truck where I'll pull people out.
Yep.
Same thing, like on the side of the road, I always try to help people out. I have got a jack with me. I always carry my big jack. Someone who trailers around a lot. I've always got like everything I need to kind of fix tires.
Yeah.
And if I can help somebody out, I always
once
try
in a while
to do
we
that.
take for granted the knowledge that we have and to share that knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
And even at boat ramps,
Yeah.
like helping somebody like, hey man, have you checked your kill switch? Because I watched it where somebody couldn't start their
Cranking and
boat and you look
cranking.
over and their kill switch is down. Like, hey, hit the kill switch. And
Yep.
they're usually kind of red in the face, embarrassed because their wife and the family's staring at them. They
Yep.
want to go fishing or tubing or whatever, so.
Yeah, don't overthink things. Sometimes it's the simplest thing. So
Yeah, right on. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to chat with our listeners about some of the things they can do to get their boats ready. We're at Rapid Marine St. Cloud. You got a lot of other dealerships, Shakopee, Rogers, Ham Lake. If anybody is interested in getting their boat service, now is the time to do it. We've got a lot of great boats on the showroom floor too. So thanks again for the time, you guys. Good luck fishing, everybody. Stay tuned. We got more Dialed In Angling podcast coming your way. onX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Download the app today to get fisheries information in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along with research tools for serious anglers and beginners alike. Filter lakes by species, trophy only, keeper fish, abundance, or all of the above. Plan which lakes to fish with the app, navigate to the accesses, and once you're there, use the onX best-in-class weather imagery and fishing hotspots to catch more fish. onX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you would never known existed. onX Fish, the app that is changing the game on ice. Arneson's Rocky Point Resort in northern Minnesota offers a little something for everyone. Nestled on Lake of the Woods South Shore, it provides easy access to 14 remarkable reefs. Serious anglers know that Arneson's offers some of the best fishing, charter fishing, and small boat fishing options, all supported by the largest protected marina on the lake's South Shore. Accommodation selections range from 1 to 5 bedrooms. Equipped with all the modern conveniences, guests can enjoy a delightful dining experience and stunning lake views at the Rock Harbor Lodge, an on-site full-service bar and restaurant. The two beaches provide hours of fun for the whole family. Whether you're seeking an idyllic fishing spot or a relaxing vacation, Arneson's Rocky Point has everything you need. Check them out at arnesonsresort.com. My next guest to the podcast is Matt Ernst. Matt, you fish down here a ton. You've spent countless years fishing down here. It's just endless water in Florida. And like, where do you start? I look at how we're coming through these passes. We're zipping through the mangroves, through all the channels. First of all, how do you start navigating the water? Second of all, where do you start fishing? Because it's just like endless backwaters down in this region from here all the way to the 10,000 Island area, basically down to the Keys. It's like endless water. You can fish out in the ocean, you can fish offshore, and then all the inshore stuff that's available down here. It's a little bit overwhelming, but it's also like super fun because I love exploring.
The big thing is to make sure you have the best map you can get for your depth finder. So like a fish charter map, but it can't really be an avionics style map. It's going to have more satellite mapping with lines that show you where you can travel. That'll open up a whole much more water for you. And also be able to more and more exploring, get into some of those small cuts, some of those small areas in the way in the back that have current, and some of those bigger snook will hang around. A lot of these fish, especially in the heat, love that current. And then you've just got to keep poking around until you can get some fish to bite. The big thing is every single thing you drive by looks good. There should be fish on everything you see. And miles of navigation from Naples down into Everglades City it's endless. And you got to choose whether or not you want to go a little bit offshore, a little bit inshore, or way in the back. And the way in the back is where it gets a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot like fishing the river. The fish relate to the current. I say fishing is fishing. I can't believe, first of all, how much these fish fight down here. It's like, I'm always amazed at like you catch a tiny little snook and you think you got a 10 pounder on it. And it's about 15 inches long, but being able to kind of navigate that current, and everything is driven by current down here. It's crazy. You got to watch the tides. You play the tides. I've learned that in saltwater everywhere you go, but down here in particular, how much the fish shift in and out, or at least they seem to shift in and out. I don't know if they hang there all the time and they have bite windows, or if they're constantly moving. I'm not sure, but it always seems like certain areas are more productive on a high tide or as the tide is coming in. And then other areas, definitely they're stacked up along there when the tide is going out.
Right. The big problem in Define is, where do you find fish in low tide? So you try to figure out, okay, you know where they're kind of at in high tide. How do you find them in low tide? And do they fall back and just sit there until 3 hours later, then the water comes up? That's always a mystery. And that's just time and time and time on the water. But yeah, the high tide and that current, and then they're moving into those locations just to feed, and it pushes the bait. And the bait it's so easy pickings for jacks and snook and whatever. So that's why they use that tide and current to their advantage.
Yeah, we got into some cool areas the last few days. We started out, we hit bunch of snook spots, and then we were looking for bigger tarpon. The wind had shifted when we were down here, kind of got rough out in the ocean, so we pushed back into those mangroves. And what's cool about fishing back in there is it's like all about exploring. I mean, we got into those tight current areas. I actually got a tarpon back in there on light tackle, which is super cool. Tarpon, you want to talk about a fish that has no quit in their body. I mean, they just are constantly fighting even when we got it up in the boat to take a photo, it's hard to manhandle those things. They don't quit, right? I mean, you think snook or redfish fight. I mean, a tarpon is a whole different level. And so it was fun to get back into some of these areas and really explore and just see how the fish relate to those current areas. Some of those neck downs, the fish were right in the middle of the channel, especially those deeper cuts. But then other ones, you'd think, it's too shallow in there. But when we zipped around, you could see fish sitting up all over in those mangroves, whether it was mangrove snapper or sheephead or whatever. But it's like there's fish everywhere on there, but they're all relating to something a little different. And a lot of them relate to the points, but a lot of them are just fixated on that current and the way that current is coming down. I remember I didn't grow up fishing the river, right? I grew up fishing a lake system. And when I started fishing the river, I was asking my Uncle Gary, and I was asking a few other people like yourself who spend a ton of time on the river, like, where do you look? Where do you start? And I remember my Uncle Gary gave me the best advice. He said, whenever you're fishing the current, fish always point their nose into the current. So keep that in mind. And, but it's a light bulb moment. And it was for me, because I think, oh yeah, he's right, And he's like, if you look at a fish, it never has its head downstream, and they're always pointed upstream. So always keep that in mind when you're fishing. So I always keep that in mind even when we're casting like mangroves and stuff. Those fish are always going to be pointed into the current.
The snook are the biggest current monsters as well under docks, and they'll wait if the current's just not to their liking and then speed. They'll wait to be able to come up and start feeding. You'll be thinking, oh, it looks good, and then you'll end up leaving 15 minutes early. And then they just start lighting up. I've pulled away from the dock, and the next thing you know, there's fish hammering. So we have to come back around and reset up and start casting for them.
Yeah, some of those docks, some of those mangroves, we'd pull in there, and the current wasn't moving. And we caught a few fish, but as that current started moving, it was like they got more aggressive and more loaded up. So I don't know, I always wonder if those fish are just sitting there and they're just chilling. You know how like you see walleyes on a reef, for example, and then all of a sudden the wind blows and they bite. Right. I wonder if a lot of those fish just sit there and wait for that tide to come up, or if they're actually coming into that area. I don't know.
What I've seen in Boca Grande, we were fishing on a pier, and it was a shallow enough pier so you could see the snook, and the snook were actually sitting there on the bottom, laying there, waiting for the current to come up, so then they can go and pick off the fish. Just like the tarpon and the point spots where the currents, they want that current to be just right so they can slide in there and just hammer whatever the heck they want. It's almost like I said yesterday, they're lazy. They're using the tools that they've got.
Well, it's amazing the amount of bait. You always think, when you're looking for bait to throw your cast net on bait, it's kind of hard to track down that bait, but the bait is everywhere. Like if you look around when the tide starts going up, there's fish chasing, there's fish blowing up, there's bait blowing up. it's so fertile with different types of, pilchard minnows and herring and just everything, right? It's super fertile. So these fish are kind of like walleyes on a reef. They're lazy. They wait for that bait to come to them. And, you see it firsthand, and they want it presented perfectly. Sort of like when you're pitching on the river, right? You got to hit that perfect spot. I know when we're casting to the mangroves or to those docks or to those points where the current's coming in on those inlets, you could cast 20 times. And if you don't hit that cast perfectly right, you don't get bit.
Right. Even on a dock, you have to be in the exact location of sliding it through. And in order to get your bait to slide further under a dock. But even on some of the other docks, it's just like they like that one exact area, and that's just where they stage up. And it's not just one fish. There could be 20 of them sitting there waiting to pounce on some of those docks.
Sure. Fun experience. I love getting down here. It's like every time I come down to Florida, different locations in Florida, there's different opportunities of fishing. I love fishing saltwater. I fished Texas, Louisiana, but I love Florida. I love obviously it's warm down here, but I like this area. It's just like endless water. And it's amazing how many guides are coming from Minnesota that are fishing down here and having great success because they're fish heads like us. They come down here, they experience the good fishing, and it's endless water. I mean, look at these guys that are running down Everglades City, 10,000. I mean, I can't imagine you could spend 2 lifetimes and not fish all these spots. And the spots are always changing with the different tides. It's not like the tide comes up to one level and then drops to another level. There's different levels of tide, and that changes the position of where you're going to fish, what you're going to do that day. I just love it. I think it's all about exploration. When it comes to fishing, for me as an angler, I love exploring, right? I do. I love trying new spots. It seems like you get down to a location like this, you hit the spots that you're comfortable with fishing, you know where they're going to fish, but then you try other ones, we were fishing under certain spots. I'm not going to name it, but we were catching jacks. And I know jacks aren't your favorite thing to catch.
No.
But coming from a guy who's been ice fishing for the last 4 months, dude, I'll catch a jack every cast. I mean, that was fun. Throwing swim baits on them. We threw herring. We caught them on different things. I think you could have thrown anything at those jacks, and they were aggressive enough. But it was cool to stop and fish spots like that because if you've never caught a jack, they bend the rod. And when you're using light tackle like we're doing for this inshore stuff, it's a blast. I love catching everything, even those smaller mangrove snapper. I don't care, man. They fight, and it's fun on light tackle. And so for me, exploration, just getting a tug on the line, it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking me fishing down here again.
My pleasure.
And I know you're going to be busy. Matt's going to fish for a couple more days when I got to get back and get my boat going. Matt's going to fish for a few days, and I know he's going to be back in Minnesota getting his boat rigged up. Speaking of this weekend, before I close out the podcast, if you're in the Garrison area this weekend, it'd be Saturday, I think the 19th. Tuts Bait and Tackle has a bunch of presenters. Myself, Al Linder, there's a whole lineup of people, including Greg Berg from the Minnesota State DNR. There's some bass anglers that have jumped on board. He's got a really good lineup of speakers. So if you got nothing to do on Saturday and you're interested in the Garrison area, Tuts Bait and Tackle, I'll be there at 10 a.m. presenting a seminar. We're going to be talking kind of specifically Mille Lacs fishing and some of the things I'll be doing for opener right now as we speak. Mille Lacs is going out. The ice is going out. I'm seeing my Facebook feed kind of blow up with ice kind of blowing up on the shorelines on the east and southeast shore. The time is now, man. I know when Mille Lacs goes out, that's always a big thing because that spring is here for me. As a walleye angler, I know I look forward to Mille Lacs, Leech, Winnie, Lake of the Woods. When all those lakes in northern Minnesota start going out, that's when I really start thinking spring. I'm going to have hopefully ample opportunity to get out crappie fishing. But at the seminar, I'm going to be specifically talking about Mille Lacs tactics, throwing plastics, using forward-facing sonar, a lot of things that I'll be doing to put fish in the boat this spring, because I know with the health of the fishery, the amount of bait that's in the lake, it's going to be a little more challenging. You're going to have to go out there and work for these fish a little bit more. You're going to have to seek out areas of the lake where they're going to be biting better than other places. But I think it's going to be a great spring on Mille Lacs Lake. With the fact that you can harvest a couple fish, there's going to be a lot more people interested in fishing Mille Lacs Lake. The past few openers, especially last year, there wasn't a ton of people. I mean, it wasn't the typical Mille Lacs opener where there's boats everywhere. I could kind of fish anywhere almost by myself. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think you're going to get a big uptick at anglers. You really are. And so, again, if you're in the area, swing over to Tuts Bait. There's going to be tons of presentations. Also, on Tuesday, I'll be down at Joe's Sporting Goods, Tuesday, April 22nd, giving a seminar down there. That's going to be more generalized as far as walleye fishing techniques that you can do this spring. A lot of using forward-facing sonar, but also using, soft plastics, hard baits, different things, artificials to target these fish and fish aggressively, power fishing, but using your forward-facing sonars also to not only find and track down fish, but what to use in certain situations to catch those fish. So come and either see me at Joe's next Tuesday or I'll be at Tuts this weekend. Matthew Ernst, thanks for taking me out fishing. Good luck this spring. I know you're getting your boat rigged up as well. Hopefully, all our listeners will be getting their boats out of storage. If you're looking at getting a new boat, get on it now. Get that boat rigged up, and good luck fishing. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach. This has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast.